It's been so long. How how long has it been? I think I used to get joy in reviewing movies. Maybe I can get back to that. Perhaps there is one out now that deserves my attention.
Yeah, just pick one.
Hey, crab cake!
I'm back.
Okay, maybe there's another movie worth talking about. Oh my, there is a lot of movie. So I'm going to break it up into 9 arbitrary, randomly thought of off the cuff sagas or chapters or whatever you want to call them. To help make sure I discuss all the key points. This is a little more of my thoughts and not a conclusive grand video essay, so apologies if it isn't the most conclusive or well-researched video, but let's talk about it. Alright, let's just open Pandora's box. I'm a big fan of Lupita, but let's be honest, this makes no sense. Helen of Troy? Helen of Troy's mother was Leda, the Queen of Sparta. Beautiful, fair-skinned, Greek woman. How does she birth a Lupita? And her father was... What the fuck? So all this vitriolic hate-mongering, and her fucking dad is the Affleck mascot?
Oh, you do lay golden eggs. Affleck can help with
Also, wait a minute. Was this all a pun? It's so weird that Troy, which is a fine movie in its own right, is being held in such high regard for being more authentic, more Greek. While there is not a single Greek person in the entire movie. Eric Bana is Croatian, and that's like close enough. But it only goes one way. It's a very trend. It happens a lot all the time in Hollywood. And I mean, like, when was the last time a white person got the role of a minority character? That hasn't happened since... Oh, it happened this year. Crazy. Casting discussions online has just gotten... exhausting, hasn't it? Hot take? Artists should be allowed some flexibility to their own vision, as long as they can justify those choices. I think it is essential to keep in mind that it is a dual role, both playing Helen and her sister, Clemestra. I'm not even a fan of, predictable plot twists. I mean, us. But if I was going to cast someone to play 2 characters, it's Lupita. I dare to open my copy of the Odyssey, which had a section of endnotes, and it described a vital statement on the siblings. So you have Helen's mother, Leda, resulting in the birth of 4 children from eggs: Helen, Clytemnestra, Castor, and Polydeuces. The 2 males being symbol of loyalty, and the 2 females of betrayal. We're gonna truncate it and just have the 2 sisters who both demonstrate each loyalty and betrayal. Seeing how both of them react to the subjugation of being betrothed to the victors of Greece does well to demonstrate the dubious morality of the war heroes. Helen is presented in that she's scarred, and maybe Lupita's complexion makes that more visual. It almost looks like this cracked porcelain doll. And I got the impression that she was kind of damaged goods from the sacking of Troy, while her sister is more vengeful, plotting the murder of Agamemnon. And Cassandra. The lack of Cassandra is disappointing. The face that launched one ship with me on it, it's mine. It's just silly, and it goes both ways. I know there was some criticism of the live action, Last Airbender. They could have cast an actual blind person. And then, like, you know, I think it's fair to criticize the directorial choice, like, after the fact, whether it worked for you or didn't. But it's a Greek story. They should look like they belong from the region. Where have I heard that before? Hey, there's actually this cool new invention that allows you to completely cast the movie to your liking. Every character looks how you want them to. I think it's called a book.
Read a book, read a book, read a motherfucking book. Read a book, read a book.
My most surprising take was, I actually thought there should have been more Travis Scott in this. Like, I mean, I don't think I'm the biggest fan, and, like, I kind of more know him for the, like, the Astro World, like, travesty. So, you know, don't know if I necessarily want him, but his character of being, like, the, like, story presenter, he opens the movie, and what could have been a really riveting opening to hark the legend and then allow us to know more the myth than the man, it just didn't work for me. A man. Yes, there was a man. I'd argue there were many men.
A war.
Yes, there was a war. I don't know. It was kind of giving me, he lies to me, he hates me. The film surprisingly never felt long. I was steadily engaged throughout, but I wish there were higher highs.
Mike Wazowski!
Mr. Noodle crushed it. I mean, he crushed many things, actually. Very interesting scene. Nice homage to
Jason off and countless screaming Argonauts.
Using forced perspective and a physical performance to bring this iconic monster to life. I'm sure Doug Jones watched this and dropped to his knees.
It should have been me, not him. It's not fair!
It's very frightening how immersive the horror is. With how it's framed, it has to be a reference to Goya's Saturn devouring his son. It is the most frightening encounter in the Odyssey, so I guess it makes sense to kind of play into the horror of it, you know, have one scene be kind of, you know, terrifying. It's definitely a different encounter than the story, flenderizing the monster into just a monster, and losing some of the characterization that comes with the "my name is nobody" being absent.
My name is Nobody. Nobody. That's it, just Nobody. Oh, Nobody. What a strange name, too.
Polyphemus, you know that we have very strict laws about noise at night. What's going on in there?
Oh, nobody stabbed me in the eye. Nobody tricked me. Nobody got me. Nobody.
That's a little bit confusing. Tell you what.
Hey, we'll come back tomorrow and check on you, man, but keep it down, all right?
The film makes Odysseus' cunningness integral, but not very pronounced. You recognize it and you go, oh, that Odysseus, you know, head on his shoulders, but it does... I mean, the like Cyclops encounter is like supposed to show like how intelligent like Odysseus is, and like I think he does have moments of like high intelligence, but they like never make it like the center of his character. It's a Nolan movie, so apparently the common complaint is with the sound mixing. Usually doesn't bother me, but the Cyclops, I do have to question it a little. So when the Cyclops speaks, I did not catch a single word. Later back on the boat, they're like, it talked about Poseidon. And like, did he? Was I supposed to get that, or is this scene supposed to fill me in? I do kind of like that it ends with him just shooting an arrow, just to be petty. Like, oh, you killed my guys. Not cool, dude. There's no magic in this movie. Outside of, you know, like the magic of movie making, but like no whimsy allowed. At least it's a very grounded take on it. Gods like Zeus and Poseidon are relegated to, weather patterns, which was probably how, it existed at the time. No windbag, because there's no great wind god Aeolus to give it to him. The crew is more or less a bunch of faceless grunts, outside of Eurylochus, which Himesh Patel, has a pretty solid performance. That's how it usually goes, but if you had some favorite, like Elpenor or Polites, pick a background guy. That might be your guy. Samantha Morton, I owe you an apology. I was not familiar with your game. Except I was. Like, come on, no, like that's Hazel, my love. One of the more interesting casting choices from the early announcements, because I thought Morton could kind of fill in anywhere in the story and do a good job. I just thought Charlize Theron as Cersei was such a layup that when she wasn't, I was like, huh. I'm more aligned with the more, regal interpretation of Cersei, sort of the right Barkers. But Morton does, pose very similar to other depictions, like Cersei offering the cup to Ulysses by John Williams Waterhouse. In trying to kind of like predict like which actor was gonna, be which role in the Odyssey, I learned a fun fact that Morton was low-key kind of an amazing singer.
Walk in the night, stood under the light. We kiss while branches silhouette the evening sky. Fog lays heavy, I can't see.
And for some odd reason, I had faith that Morton could pull off creepy, for some reason. So I almost wanted to see like her as like a siren, or if we did, the fun Willy Wonka like Tunnel of Love. I know it's not accurate, but it's cinematic, so you never know. I almost like she could have been like Scylla, with more of like the echoes of her human form like humming in the background. I thought that would have been fantastic, but I guess I never get what I want, and she can just be Cersei and there's no horror, I guess. Silly me. Oh my gods. Leaning into the more traditional like witch aspect of Cersei. Welcome to Transformation Station. That's why Will Young Lee, kind of my favorite performance in this. Man has zero dialogue, but kind of carries the crewmates by understanding the assignment the whole way through. I love how subtle and like subtextual the like depths of Cersei is. I do think that there's hints of her trauma, there's hints of the origin of her misandry, while the character never loses tactical advantage. She has sort of a flirty relationship with Odysseus, which is a nod to, how it plays out in Homer's Odyssey. And I think that's all we really need. Like, we got places to be. Like, we don't really need to spend an entire year dicking around on her island. Could you imagine?
Guys, relax. It's only halftime.
I couldn't imagine being so upset about an imaginary hypothetical that you just made up. It's so interesting how the internet has emboldened many stupid people. Elliot Page, do you see what's wrong here? It doesn't match the look of the character. The character is supposed to, has thin, pale blue swaying hair that was casually short, but there was a tuft of hair tied up on both sides of her forehead, and indigo-colored eyes. Her combat attire consists of a desert-colored military jacket, bulletproof armor of the same color, and combat boots, as well as a white muffler around her neck. What? At least I got the name right. So Sidon is an interesting character. Not originally in the Homeric works, but introduced in Virgil's Aeneid. I can't wait for, the horseshoe theory to be proven. Actually, it's problematic. Sinon assists in the opening of the gates of Troy, and, has more of a role, and is not killed right away. And the one trans actor is the character that, has a cameo in Dante's Inferno, and is the one whose name is evoked by William Shakespeare to basically call a character a rat. What did Nolan mean by this? I thought it was one of the better moments of Sinon being like, what the heck, dude? Basically, sacrificed to allow Odysseus to do his all-in gamble on the horse gambit. Probably the best example of Odysseus' hubris, often in the case with the war, and, with the shades of Oppenheimer. I knew it would work. It was the key to our victory. Any means necessary. I like blind Tiresias just crawling on the floor. The Black Sand is a great location, and I don't know, the underworld's cool. Interesting how the underworld is usually used to motivate Odysseus to stop mucking around. Come on, get home already. I think Nolan's adaptation, really accentuates that Odysseus doesn't value anyone else. Sinon at least can appreciate that, he was buried and that his life was honored. Here's all those people you didn't do that for. Odysseus makes the Oscar in memoriam and just chooses to leave people out. We can't remember everyone.
I cast Thunderspell! No!
At first, I thought Odysseus had a gambling addiction and was completely willing to all or nothing his crew by sailing into Charybdis. It's interesting how Matt Damon is clever in this. He essentially reverse psychologies Eurylochus to hell, in which he tricks, Eurylochus into making, steering into Scylla, his choice. He might have just, forgotten a wee disclaimer with that. Siren Scene is interesting. Doing that muted sound I talked about earlier. Making their song the Tenacious D tribute. Also, R.I.P. my favorite performance. But, maybe the best way to go out, I'm pretty sure, everyone else, drowned or got big man. But I'm in the infinite Tsukiyomi. I'm not experiencing that. I'm just hearing, I will take the suffering from you on loop until I die. And that's the best deaths to have in this cursed world. Nice to see, between Scylla and Charybdis, back together. It's the most yada yada encounter in which it gets the job done. The crew has to eat the cattle, despite Odysseus saying don't do that. Food rations were very, well, pronounced, so it makes sense. We could, what could possibly go wrong?
Treating others as they'd like to be treated, forbade stop signs and curing diseases.
Robert Pattinson is a smarmy villain, but he's too dang likable of an actor. How do we make the audience not like him? I mean, people love Pattinson so much. What are we gonna do? He's gonna have to kick a doggy to make us hate him. I'm surprised that people have come after Tom Holland as maybe the weakest link in the movie. He's perfectly fine. I don't think there's a clear weakest link in the film. Nolan creates another all-star game cast. People take it seriously. I think the character writing leaves a little bit to be desired, but that plagues the entire cast. Maybe it's the limitation of IMAX filming that there's so much, start and stop with the reels that the actors have to stay on schedule. Interesting that there's a decent amount of time spent on Antigonus's backstory. He's not just a rude asshole. He's bitter. He's arrogant. He's a peacocking bully to telemarketer. But he looks actual fearful when a real threat comes by. The Ithaca stuff is very important to the Odyssey. even though, like, I know in the past, like, that's not, like, the fun part of the story. So it's interesting that, like, that gets, like, a premium role here.
I'm on tonight, you know my hips don't lie, and I'm starting to feel it's right.
Maybe the crucial segment as to whether you enjoy this film is the use of Calypso. Calypso is the frame narrative. This is actually, pretty true to how the Odyssey typically plays out, with it starting on Calypso's island and recounting everything that, led the lone man washing up to shore. Calypso is a framing narrative that allows Nolan to do his typical chronological order editing, but man, if it would have stuck the landing, then this is where I think it could have been, a masterpiece for me. I know a lot of people think it is, and like technically it is. Like, I think this film might even be attempting how I kind of feel about it, but I think they want to do a Citizen Kane here. Charles Foster Kane dies, this eccentric recluse whose dying words were, mysterious, Rosebud. What the hell does that mean? The entire movie follows reporters as they try to piece together from different accounts what was the meaning of Rosebud. Each person interview adds layers and deepens the understanding of who Kane was. And it's very similar to, like, Millennium Actress, or even if it's like The Fall, like movies that really utilize their frame narrative to keep building on this like overarching story. Who is the man of myth, and who was he really? I see layers of that with Tom Holland's Telemachus asking around to know who his father was. And, starting with Calypso and Odysseus not having his memory allows that audience to wonder who he was. I wish there was more emphasis on Odysseus longing for his past, like Gatsby's green light, not quite knowing the meaning, but recognizing the feeling. I'm familiar with the Odyssey, maybe revealing like she's been sedating him for several years now has a bigger impact on a newer viewer. The reveal of losing several years feels like an inconvenience at worst, which is wild, being the director who made one of the most shattering scenes of time slipping through your fingers and the devastation that can bring with Interstellar. Also, like, we're apparently just we're gonna sweep the whole, essay under the rug. Did it happen in this version? Unclear? Who knows?
Daddy's home for me.
What I said earlier, I think this adaptation is trying to build the reputation of Odysseus, but doing the Nolan time warp, the real turmoil comes from the sacking of Troy and the, PTSD that has been weighing on him. Maybe that's why Odysseus is a rather flat character throughout the whole journey. Calypso poses the question, why don't you want to go home? Thematically fascinating. There's one scene that I think is open to interpretation. Spoiler talk if I haven't been doing that this whole time. But during the destruction of Troy, there's maybe the biggest moment in the entire movie. They find and they literally kill Zendaya. Zendaya? Initially, I thought this was a bit about empathy. They say, early in the film, back in Ithaca, that you treat others with hospitality because they could be a god in disguise. So, in this scene, Odysseus imagines the innocent shrine maiden as Athena, showing the hostile act being sort of a, sacrilegious. Don't get me wrong, I think that's one way to interpret it, though I'm not sure that's exactly correct. It really comes into question. Is Athena real? There's no other gods. Take that as you will. And, I think there's a fair interpretation that Athena can, with the whole thing with, it could be a god in disguise, as like, well, Athena can change her form and is choosing the image of the Shrine Maiden to, I don't think taunt is the right word, but it is essential to Odysseus' healing to come to terms with that he did defy the gods, but, can repent and redeem himself. Or Athena could essentially just be Mr. Robot, or Taika Waititi, a reflection of Odysseus' inner turmoil. I think this adaptation puts a great deal of its themes being about devotion. Throughout the film, Odysseus is there in the corner. That's him in the spotlight, losing his religion. It's a crisis of a faith, or at least, personal belief. The gods are a roadmap to how to coexist and demonstrate our humanity. Might be a little contemporary for the Odyssey, but maybe the world needs it now. The Odyssey is good. It's a good movie. It reminded me of Dunkirk. You feel the motion of the journey rather than, remembering the strong character study or innovative plot. One thing I was curious about going in was there's this little internet phenomenon known as Epic the Musical.
Alright, my brothers, listen closely.
It's really interesting that the Odyssey, which has been around forever, has two really well done adaptations very recently. Epic the Musical by Jorge Rivera Herons, and an army of talented fan animators have collectively built a version of the Odyssey that is flawed, but it has a lot of heart and strong characterization to it. Fully adapted into an animated movie, they'll buff out all the kinks, but incredible thematic through line and character depth. I always felt bad because this is good and fun, but sure to be outdone by one of the best filmmakers around. But then I actually got worried that Nolan would fail to get me to invest in the characters as much as Jorge did, asking, when does a man become a monster and against a world where ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves? I think these two versions actually ended up being great companion pieces with one another. Nolan emphasizes the great laws of hospitality, while Epic demonstrates the full array of gods and mystical whimsy that mythology can be. They're two almost entirely different adaptations that complement each other with just how different they are. The Odyssey is a tale as old as time, it feels. I was always surprised that there's never really been a definitive film version of it. The truth might be that there will never be a definitive version. Maybe your version is one of these two, or Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, or maybe even the SpongeBob movie. It's a great framework, and it continues to inspire creatives even to this day. Nolan has, at the very least, made the most technically marvelous telling of the tale. And maybe that is to be succeeded in the future. Maybe it isn't for everyone, and maybe the tale looms too large to even feel like the magic is entirely captured on camera. Whether it is faith in higher powers or consideration for maintaining order, what can we do but pick ourselves back up and find a place we can call home? Cherish our familiarity and find a way to fall in love again. Alright, thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you at the movies.